All right, Lokati here. Today we're going to be looking at our Splitting Steel Slayer. Splitting Steel is one of my favorite skills. It has amazing clear, great damage, and incredibly good scalability, especially into the end game with items like Nimmies. And so we're leading this off with a Slayer build version of it as opposed to a Trickster version of it. We like the lifestyle of the Slayer with frenzy and endurance charges, the tankiness, along with the easy damage scalability. And so this ends up being a really good sword and board version of the shield, but let's go ahead and take a look at how it does in a map. Let's actually grab a little pit of the Chimera map. We can do just about every mod, so we can unidentify this, but we'll just make sure that it cannot be leached, because that's the only really annoying one. So just a little Conqueror map so we can see damage in the map and damage on the boss. Blasting is fairly straightforward. You're going to dash through and hit things. We have a few cooldowns we're going to be using, so you want to keep your blood rage up, and as long as you're killing things and moving quickly, your blood rage will just stay up the whole map. We have a tincture that we can use on large single targets, which for the most part we're just going to save on bosses. And then we also have a Vol Haste that again we're going to use primarily against bosses. So for most of the map, you're just blasting around and hitting Splitting Steel. Now as far as tankiness goes, as long as you don't let Leech fall off, you mostly can't die. We are currently in this build, Spell Suppression capped, Ailment immune, 3600 reserved life, block capped with Versatile Combatant, and maximum resist for all elements and chaos. So it is nice and smooth and tanky as you fly through the map. Always grab your shrines, they're fun to have, especially the little speed shrines. They make everything go so much faster. Domination is the only way to map. And so Soul Eater mob right there just dies instantly, and we just continue blasting through. Now, if you run into a mob that is particularly challenging, don't forget to use your cooldowns. Sometimes they get off on the side. You get so used to just flying through and you forget that you have them, but make sure you are using them. We'll come in here to the boss. This boss is a little on the annoying side because he has all these immune phases. And so like right here, we're in immune phase. Like I said, damage on the build is solid. We're sitting at around 30 to 70 million multi-target because of the way Splitting Steel shotguns, and then we're sitting somewhere around 20 to 30 million single target, again because of the way Splitting Steel shotguns. With a Nimmies, you can triple the single target DPS of the build, and you can double the multiple target DPS of the build. So Nimmies is definitely something that you want to consider. Unfortunately, they are like 200 div right now. And so a little bit outside of the budget for entry level on the build. Currently, we're probably sitting in this build about 50 div to get to here. And then entry on this build is 1 div to get in and start playing and blasting T16 maps. And then 10 div to really feel comfortable blasting the maps and feel tanky so that you can do more challenging mods on the map itself. The most uninteresting boss ever. And we hit execute. Nope, he's gonna phase. And he jumps into his little smoke portal-y things. And he dies. And so let's go take a look at the POB. Alright, so that is how the build does in the map. Like I said, it's quick, it's fast, it blasts, it does great single target, it does great AoE. We're looking at the build as it sits right now with my current gear, and then I will include a low budget version and a higher budget version of the POB in the link down below. But right now we're looking at, I would say, an average of about 50 div worth of gear here. At 50 div worth of gear, we have a single projectile damage of about 11 million DPS. Now, if you're familiar with Splitting Steel, it fires projectiles that split off, and then when those splits happen, they create explosions that do further damage for every target they pierce. So we have 7 splinters on Splitting Steel, which means we can do approximately 81 million DPS. This is also taking into consideration the 39% more projectile damage from returning projectiles. Now, you're not always going to be doing 81 million DPS, so you're somewhere between 11 per single target and 81 million depending on where you're standing near the targets, how many targets are around you, and how those projectiles are going to return to you. And so your upper end is going to be 81 million, your lower end is going to be 10 million. Realistically, you're probably mapping somewhere around 30 to 40 and bossing somewhere around 25 to 35. So for this budget, that is amazing damage with 25k Fizz max hit, 66k Fire, Cold, and Lightning, 35k chaos, and 167k effective health pool. Now, this is with Molten Shell cast with damage taken. And so as always, we also want to see numbers without our guard shields up. And so we are still looking at a 17k max fizz hit, a 39 to 40k Ellie hit, a 100k effective health pool, and lightning resist and our chaos resist isn't even capped yet. It absolutely blasts through everything with no problems whatsoever. And we are at 65% block chance so that we have much fewer hits coming in, a little bit of spell block chance to help out with that. And we are suppression capped and we are ailment immune. And so this gives us a tremendous layer of defenses for our character. We are ailment immune for all elemental ailment, and we even have a little bit of crit reduction thanks to our lovely lethal pride jewels. Now, for people looking at my builds, when you come into my chat and ask, how do I get a timeless jewel? I'm always going to include this in all of my build guides. You go to timeless jewel here and you're just going to click search. What I do is I fill in the jewel that you want, the conqueror that you need, the location of the jewel, and we set it to the appropriate number of nodes. Then you come over here and generate, so that create a set of nodes that are based on the damage that is most ideal for your character. And after all that, you hit search. 9 times out of 10, this is all going to be filled in the spreadsheet already. There are updates to POB and updates to the way these things search for them sometimes. And so I'll go back and make changes to those as I get a chance. As you can see, 12653 is our absolute best one here. We have a 15567, so this is not the end-all be-all of jewels on our character. But what you'll do is you'll highlight the best ones, which are sorted by their value, copy trade URL, and then dump this trade URL into any browser to search for the timeless jewels that fit your character. If you're using the timeless jewel search right, you will almost always be able to find a really good timeless jewel for you for 1 or 2 div. You don't have to drop 35 or 40 div on these timeless jewels. As long as you're doing the search right, it's going to pull all of the ones up that are comparable and give you that option. Now, on our passive tree here, we are going down to Bravery, we're going down to Defiance, we're going down to Fury Bolts, we're going down to Revelry and taking Mana Mastery for Reservation of Skills. We're getting Cloth and Chain and Armor and Evasion for the massive defenses. We're getting Life Mastery with Golem's Blood here, so that we have better management of our mana as well as more damage and life here. We have Dismembering here with Critical Strike Mastery. We have Testudo here for recovery of life on block as well as increased block chance. We have Versatile Combatant so that some of our block chance can dump over into spell block chance. And we have Deflection over here for additional block chance and endurance charges on block. On our cluster jewel here, we are going down to Interrogation and Ancestral Vision for ailment immunity. We are getting Bleeding Mastery and Chance to Bleed here so that we can get the additional critical strike chance on our bleeds. We do have Thick Skin here for health and our ailment avoidance. We have Entrench here for spell suppression, Lethality for critical strike damage. We're using an Intuitive Leap Jewel so that we can grab Survivalist, Heartseeker, Acuity, and Herbalism. If you have a sword that has accuracy on it, you do not have to use an Intuitive Leap to grab Acuity, and instead you can just path down here to Fervor, path around here to Herbalism, and path around here to Heartseeker. We do want the spell suppression from Inveterate here. We do want the additional projectile from Multi-Shot here. We're using Thieves Craft to get a little bit more int for our skills, and we are taking Revenge of the Hunted and Forces of Nature with Elemental Mastery Inversion, and we are taking Mark Mastery with Marked Enemies Cannot Regenerate Life. This one's flexible. You can change this around if you need to. If it's a crit map, come in here, swap this out, and make it Marked Enemies Cannot Deal Critical Strikes. If it's a map where you're stealing frenzy charges, you can come in here and get additional frenzy charges on your hit. And so this is a flexible node for you to do different things with as you find necessary. Blood Drinker for life, our last frenzy charge here. And finally, a corrupted blood cannot be inflicted on you jewel. All of this passive tree does is shore up all of our defenses and keeps our damage as high as we can get it. There are small changes you can make as necessary, and if you are leveling the character and you're not level 95 yet, you want to give up things like a little bit of life here you could give up here, you could give up on this extra proj here, you could give up on Mark Mastery here. So there are small things that you can give up as you're leveling the build to get to this point. Now our items, we are using an Armageddon foil. This is a jeweled foil with 859 elemental DPS, as well as increased critical strike chance and strength and intelligence. We are using a shield. This is very important. You want a 40% block shield with attack speed, avoid elements, spell suppression, life, and increased damage per 1% block. These shields are a little difficult to come by and make right now, so come by the channel and I'll help as I can. Carrying Crown just gives us some suppression, some accuracy, and some life and resistances, and we are going to put increased mana reservation efficiency and reduced mana cost of attacks on it. A Lion's Eye Vision is our body armor of choice. This one is double corrupted for AoE gems and projectile gems. If you can get one, get it. That is an absolutely ton of damage. 81 mil DPS cap right there. Without our body armor, 62 mil DPS. So definitely look out for those. It is often that you can find a 1 or a 2 socketed version of this and just 6 link it. If you don't know how to 6 link it, come by the channel and I will be glad to walk you through that. We have gloves that have rage on attack hit. It is the only source of rage for splitting steel. We do not do a melee hit, and so we need rage on attack hit only. We also have suppressed spell damage here, as well as 14% suppressed spell damage on the gloves, so that we can cap our spell suppression, attack speed, life, and general resistances and evasion, and we're crafting on damage while leeching. If you feel like your clear is not up to par, you can craft on projectile pierce here as well. We are running the trio of Ralakesh, Arn's Anguish, and Yoke of Suffering. These 3 items are the most powerful items for Slayer right now, doing an Frenzy Endurance build. Yoke of Suffering is multiplicative damage for every element on the target, and Ralakesh's and Arn's Anguish allow us to use Endurance charges for defenses and Brutal charges for offenses at the exact same time. So Taming is plus 90% damage, flat more damage. Arn's Anguish is plus 90% flat more damage with Brutal charges. And so these items are very important. We are also using a Taming because the increased damage for hits and ailments is very good. It's also an excellent source of resistances for elemental resistances. And an Amethyst Ring to finish off our Chaos Res, our Ellie Reses, life, and as well as some attack damage. We have lightning damage crafted on the ring. You could also craft elemental attack damage with elemental skills. Or if you've already got one of those on there, you can craft the second one instead of having the evasion on the ring. We are running a prismatic tincture with attack speed on it and increased effect and mana burn rate. This is 30 million DPS tincture. I know. I want to play a 1-button build, you want to play a 1-button build, and Joe down the street wants to play a cast when stun build where he can AFK and drink some beer. But tinctures are incredibly powerful. Get them, use them. They are invaluable for taking down large single targets very quickly. We're also running a granite and a jade flask with armor and evasion, and a silver flask and a diamond flask, so that we have a coverage on our crit. I'm running crit on both of these so that if one is down, I'm getting crit from the other one. You could run curse effect, or you could run movement speed or some other attribute that you feel is necessary for your build. Again, Ancestral Vision for the ailment immunity, Interrogation for Secrets of Suffering. Secrets of Suffering allows us to inflict Scorch, Brittle, and Sapped, and then we use Skitterbots to inflict Chill and Shock. Our Cluster Jewel is Feed the Fury, Fuel the Fight, and Smite the Weak. Feed the Fury is the single highest DPS node that we can possibly take, and with a Yoke of the Suffering, Smite the Weak is the single second largest node that we can take. We're only putting Feed the Fury on there to guarantee that Fuel the Fight and Smite the Weak are the first 2 options that we have. Our Lethal Pride we talked about, our Tutor we talked about, and our Corrupted Gem here we already talked about. Now for our active skills, we are running Whirling Blades as our primary movement skill. We are running Blood Rage for the additional attack speed and the additional frenzy charges. We are running Enlightened with Determination, Summon Skitterbots, and Flesh and Stone. And we are sitting in Stone Stance for the 19% reduced incoming damage. And we're running Splitting Steel with Return Proj, Trinity, Awakened Elemental Damage with attacks for Ellie Reflection, Increased Critical Damage, and Ice Bite. And we are Precision with Arrogance. I also have a Frost Blink on here for movement over ledges that Whirling Blades cannot do. Mark on hit with Sniper's Mark for the additional proj that we get from Sniper's Mark. And a Vol Haste socketed for additional boss damage. And so we're never enabling the Haste aura, just using the Vol Haste for bosses. Now you've also got Enduring Cry and Urgent Orders in here, so that you have the ability to generate brutal charges on bosses, and more duration so that both the buff from Vol Haste lasts longer and the increased life regeneration lasts longer here. And so this will round out all of your skills on your bar. If you have any questions on the build, leave comments down below. I will answer them as soon as I can. If you want your questions answered more quickly, more effectively, then please come by my Twitch channel. I spend about 80% of the time I am streaming just helping people figure out their builds. I always wanted to teach. I get to teach now, and teaching video games is actually a lot of fun for me. So come by the channel. I'll answer all your questions. We'll get you figured out. Thank you very much. All right, y'all. Thanks for watching the video. As always, come by Twitch if you have any questions, or check out this video that YouTube thinks you like, or check out our latest upload over there. Peace.